Hello all, Rick here with a video that is probably going to date itself. So, with the Section 31 show on the way, I think, we know that it will be set in the lost era of Star Trek, which is to say the time between the original series films and the launch of the Enterprise D in Next Generation. In universe, this covers the time from 2293 to 2364, a 71-year period where the Excelsior class reigned and the uniform never changed. Good luck with sticking to that, Star Trek. That's a lot of time to cover, but we know some things about it, either drawn from canon or expanded upon by apocryphal tales. So I thought I'd compile a list of 8-ish things that we know of, with many more facts thrown in for fun. 2 Enterprises were active in this time period. In canon, we don't know the launch date for the Enterprise C, nor the lost date of the B. Honestly, we don't even know the Enterprise B's fate. As unlikely as it is, technically the Enterprise C could have launched in 2343 and then been destroyed a year later. Just saying. But commonly established dates are that the B vanished in 2329 and that the Ambassador-class Enterprise C was launched 3 years later in 2332. During its lifetime, the Enterprise B was regarded as an ill-fated vessel, beginning with the young captain, John Harriman, being the son of Admiralty. Many had already whispered he was secured the flagship through nepotism. His first mission would see him remembered as the captain who got James T. Kirk killed, instead of the man who saved 47 Elorian lives. I've always had a soft spot for Harriman. His backstory was indeed that he had achieved the position thanks to some political pull his family had, and that the launch of the Enterprise B was as much a PR stunt as an actual shakedown. However he got the chair, he was already determined to prove himself, but was as green as they came. Add to this the weight of being the guy who lost Kirk, and suddenly you've got such an interesting motivation for a character with great growth potential. Every day he had to prove to everyone else that he actually deserved the Enterprise, and that he was not just in the shadows of giants and the machinations of an ambitious family. The novels go on to paint the picture of a man who was studious, tactical if overwhelmed, and he grows into his role eventually, leading me to my next point. The Tomid incident. In canon, what we know is that in 2311, thousands of lives were lost in a series of attacks from the Romulan Star Empire that resulted in the creation of the Treaty of Alderaan. That is the document which outlawed Federation cloaking technology and de-escalated Romulan aggression until 2364. The details are expanded upon in Apocrypha and reveal that Harriman was a key figure in creating this incident, and the whole thing was a false event created by Starfleet intelligence in order to prevent another Romulan war. The IRW Tomid crashed into a Federation base in the Foxtrot sector, publicly resulting in massive fatalities. In reality, it was a long-planned staged event. Foxtrot was empty, the life signs were false, and the Tomid was hijacked by Starfleet intelligence. The ploy was enough, however, and never revealed. The Romulans assumed that the believable, vindictive Romulan Captain Vokar was to blame, and the Klingon Empire pledged its support to Starfleet in the face of a new Romulan threat. Thus, the Romulan Empire backed down, and the treaty was signed. The Enterprise B would go on to have many other captains over its time, including Demora Sulu, and in books it is credited with 142 surveys and 17 first contacts in its first decade of service. As befitting an Enterprise, the vessel was taken in for several refits and overhauls in its lifetime, benefiting from the Excelsior's sturdiness and adaptability. Alongside the many clandestine missions it took on behalf of Starfleet intelligence, it also continued the duties of any Excelsior class at the time, from archaeological surveys, defensive patrols, cargo transports and diplomatic meetings. It embarked on exploration missions near Zenkethi space, but was told to avoid antagonising the hostile species, and eventually assigned to the Cardassian border where it could help Bajoran refugees escape as Cardassia invaded. Its ultimate fate saw a deadly illness break out on the ship with no cure. so the ship seems to have deliberately lost itself in space somewhere to prevent its spread. The vessel was declared missing in 2329, but as I mentioned earlier, this is not from primary canon. So, who else is around in this time? Well, Jean-Luc Picard was born in 2305 and failing his Starfleet entrance exams until 2323, graduating the Academy in 2327. One ship he trained on was the USS Leo de Grace, which during his birth year was under the command of Captain Uhura on a 5-year mission to the Lesser Magellanic Cloud. In 2294, the USS Jenolan, carrying Scotty, was listed as missing when it crashed on the Dyson Sphere, remaining undiscovered for decades. Tuvok was very prevalent in the Lost Era, resigning from Starfleet in 2298, and in 2309, Sisko's dad is born. Holy shit, Joseph Sisko was younger than Picard? In 2319, T'Lyn is born, making her 1 year older than Louis Zimmerman, and I'm going to stop here because this thing is blowing my mind. If you were wondering though, the Dax at this time would have been the infamous Curzon. Speaking of ambassadors, this is my best segue. The Ambassador class Enterprise C was set to launch in 2332 from Utopia Planitia, and is most notable for its destruction at the hands of Romulans at the Battle of Narendra III. Yesterday's Enterprise in TNG goes on to show us how pivotal that event was, with the Enterprise C's sacrifice coming at a time of mounting tension with the Klingon Empire. Their act of bravery and sacrifice while defending the Klingons preserved the Khitomer Accords, and renewed the Klingons' faith in them, essentially preventing another full-scale war. However, this battle saw the capture of Tasha Yar and the creation of Sela, her daughter, who goes on to play a major role in the Romulan Tau Shiar, and possibly more. However, Rachel Garrett was the captain of the Enterprise C for this battle, and had a career in Starfleet leading up to this. I won't go into details on it here as she is slated to appear in Section 31, but according to the books, she was born in 2294 and enrolled in Starfleet by 2311. She is said to have eventually had a son, and by the turn of the 25th century she had received numerous memorials and recognitions, including the Red Lady statue on Metallus Prime. Prior to the announcement of Section 31, she did have little to do with Starfleet intelligence or Section 31, unlike her prior counterpart Harriman. The Enterprise C's career was much in the same vein as the previous ships of the name, in that it did a bit of everything, as befitting the Ambassador class. On a technological level, it was around this time, I say casually referring to 7 decades, that Starfleet was developing a lot of new innovations that were standard by the time of TNG. We, again, don't have canonical dates for these, but with most tech it was likely a gradual process before becoming standard. This included the introduction of phaser strips, for the most part replacing the point turrets and cannons, the intensive switch over from duotronic to isolinear computer systems, the widespread introduction of LCAR's user interfaces, and the potential revamp of the warp scale. The isolinear switch-up is probably the biggest deal here, as it represented a substantial shift in computing speeds and power, leading to more efficient Federation things all round. Holographic technology came into its own, allowing for the rudimentary systems, such as the rec deck, to be replaced by more advanced and creative systems like a holodeck. One thing that I hope remains for the Section 31 film is the look. I love the style of ships in this era, and the uniform, it is my favourite design. The fold-over tab with the rank pins, the white and black and red colour scheme, all great, and I hope it remains unchanged. We did see an alternate Captain Pike appearing wearing a slightly modified version of this outfit in Strange New Worlds, which, like Section 31, spun out of Discovery, which continues the visual overhaul started there. However, that, like all good things, sprung from a timeline which never came to be, so maybe we won't see it. Likewise with the Excelsior. The funny thing is, I'm alright with the redesign of the original Constitution class, so long as it remains either a visual, not a lore change, or if it is a lore change, it's then refitted into a TOS style. However, I'd not be okay with the Excelsior being heavily altered. Why? Because it's my favourite ship. Is that biased? Yes. Hypocritical? Possibly. I just don't think the Excelsior needs an overhaul to make it look up to date, and honestly, neither does the refit Mark II Constitution. That whole era looks great still. That all being said, it is a bit of a stretch, even in the original canon, to see that a single uniform lasted about 70 years with very little alteration. So, if they want to introduce a variation, I'd be willing to entertain it, so long as the Monster Maroon makes an appearance to establish that it was still around, even during other changes. Other vessels that were common at this time included those from the 23rd century, like the Miranda class and her subclasses, the ever-present Excelsior, its refit, and the Mark II Connie. The Oberth was the new science ship on the block, and apparently we get the emergence of the Centaur, as well as some strange Excelsior kit bashes in this time frame. However, it was the Constellation class and Ambassador that really came into their own during this era, with the Stargazer being commanded by Picard in 2333 in the aforementioned Enterprise C. So, there is a lot of room for new ship designs. Basically anything with these nacelles, or tinged in blue, likely stems from the Lost Era. It is a time marked by a lot of Federation expansion, but with the occasional tensions from the Romulans and Klingons alike. Spycraft was rife from all parties, it seems, with a major focus on the Romulan Star Empire. Much new technology was being developed, leading to the formation of the next generation style, and we can see a clear through line over these missing 70-odd years. Towards the end of this era, there are lots of familiar names beginning to creep in as characters we know and love are born, and I still cannot believe that Picard is older than Sisko's dad. So, thanks for watching this look into the lost era of Star Trek. The time when the wild frontier of space was becoming more tame and Starfleet entering an extended period of prosperity thanks to the machinations of a few. Mostly it's being covered in various book series, but most of these are non-canonical to Star Trek, so it's a bit more of an unwritten time than I'm making out here. Nevertheless, I hope to see some development of this era, and what of you? Any tales or events from this time that you'd like to see fleshed out? The Cardassian Border Wars, the first encounters with the Zenkethi. Until the next video, I've been Rick, and I'll see you next time for another lore video. Until then, thanks again, and goodbye.